All right, welcome. In this presentation, we're going to be talking about government contracting for those of you who are interested in learning about government contracting. It is it's a very complicated game, and I've been in this game for about 3 years. 3 years ago, I started by getting a profile on Sam.gov and immediately started researching opportunities and found out that it's a lot more complicated, and the tools that were available for free were very poor. And so I've gone through quite a journey of learning, and I want to share that with you. So let's get started. First of all, we'll talk about what is government contracting. So government contracting is the process through which the government agencies and organizations enter into agreements with private sector businesses, nonprofit organizations, or other entities to purchase goods, services, or both. So talking about the types of goods and services purchased by the government, I think you'd be really surprised to find out all the different things that the government purchases. Of course, they're going to buy defense and security equipment, which is weapon systems, vehicles, and aircraft. So if you're making tanks or fighter jets, then you should definitely be encouraged to try to sell those to the government. As well as surveillance, communication, and cybersecurity systems. And I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek there because, of course, most people who would be on this webinar would never be in that business, but this is kind of obvious. However, think of, in terms of defense and security equipment, maybe you do sell lower level things. Maybe you manufacture some devices or things that can be used in the federal government for defense. Then there's information technology and software. This is where my company is. And so information technology and software includes hardware, software, and network infrastructure, IT consulting, support, and maintenance services, as well as infrastructure and construction, building and facility construction, renovation and maintenance, road, bridge, and transportation infrastructure projects. And then an example of that is, I know someone in Dallas who's got a business excavating, and he's got a bunch of big tractors, and he's got government contracts to excavate. Then we have professional and consulting services like management, consulting, strategy, development, and process improvement, engineering, architectural, and environmental services. And then there's research and development, which includes scientific research in areas like health, energy, and technology, innovation and technology development support, and then we have healthcare services and products such as pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and equipment, healthcare management and support services. So examples of pharmaceuticals, back when we had COVID, a lot of companies were selling masks to the federal government. So a lot of clothing companies, sheet companies, companies that made any kind of textiles were turning around and creating masks to sell to the federal government. And then as well, we have training and education services, workforce development and training programs, curriculum development, educational consulting, logistics and transportation as well, freight, shipping, and warehousing services, fleet management and maintenance. And I've got a friend who's got a shipping business out in Virginia. They ship all up and down the East Coast, and they have some government contracts which have been really great for their business and help them to steady out their revenues throughout the years. Then we have as well facilities management and maintenance, janitorial, landscaping, and utilities, security and access control systems. So just imagine, in terms of landscaping, you have a base or some government facility where they have huge lawns and you own a tractor. You could land a contract to mow 40 acres of lawns. Human resources and staffing, recruitment, talent management, and employee benefit services, temporary and permanent staffing solutions, as well as office supplies and equipment, furniture, stationery, and electronic devices, printing, copying, and document management services. And so this list is not exhaustive. The government's procurement needs are vast and continually evolving. And when you review opportunities, you're going to be really amazed to see some of those opportunities. I'm going to give you one example that I was really surprised by, and that was support for Catholic priests. So for one of the bases or areas of the country, they needed support for Catholic priests. And I didn't read too much into it to see what those involved, but I thought that was very interesting and not something that I would have imagined that the federal government would be procuring. All right, so moving on, we're going to be talking about the federal acquisition process. So the federal government has a process they follow to develop the need for services and then to get companies to bid as well as start relationships with those companies. So first of all, we have the planning and requirements definition phase, where they identify the need for goods and services, define the scope, specifications, and performance requirements, and estimate costs and establish a budget. Next, they perform market research. They research potential suppliers and contractors, assess market conditions, trends, and pricing, and determine procurement methods, e.g. small business set-asides. Small business set-asides, what that refers to is the federal government is required on any job of over $1 million, where the contract amount's over $1 million, that budget is required to be spent at least 23% on small business. And so this is really attractive. If you have a small business, that means the federal government is required by law to give businesses like yours 23% of any contract over $1 million. And then in general, of all the budgets, they're required to give 23%. Projects that are very small, like less than $1 million, they're not required to do so. But those are some pretty cool opportunities. If you think of $1 million project, let's say you have a company that lands $1 million project, they need to take 23% of those dollars and allocate those to a small business if they themselves are not a small business. So continuing on with the federal acquisition process, we have the overview of the procurement lifecycle continued. The next phase is solicitation development, which is they develop a solicitation package, including the request for proposal, a request for quotation, or an invitation to bid. Then they specify the evaluation criteria, terms and conditions, and submission requirements, as well as, or I should say the next phase is solicitation release and advertisement. This is where they publish the solicitation on a public platform such as Sam.gov or an agency website. And then they allow sufficient time for potential contractors to prepare and submit proposals or bids. Something to keep in mind here is the sufficient time frame is not always accurate. Sometimes they only put a proposal on there for a few days. There's always going to be a response date, a response deadline, assuming it is an actual solicitations, because some of the types of notices that go out there are not actually solicitations. But if it is a solicitation, then they're going to have a response deadline, and that response deadline is generally about 30 days, but it could be very short, and it could be longer than 30 days. Then there's the proposal evaluation and selection phase, where submissions are evaluated based on predefined criteria such as technical expertise, past performance, and cost. In the old days, I'm told, because I wasn't around making proposals on government contracts in the old days, but from what I'm told, that the government used to pay really a much greater attention on the cost part of the proposal and much less on everything else. But nowadays, I'm told the government is much more balanced in its approach. So continuing on, the next step is conduct negotiations, if applicable, to refine proposals and reach the best value. Select the winning contractor and notify unsuccessful bidders. And then we have the contract award and execution, which is finalizing the contract terms, including pricing, deliverables, and performance metrics, obtaining the necessary approvals and signatures, and notifying the contractor of the award and beginning the contract performance. And of course, this is going to be in a little bit of a different order here. They're going to have to get the signatures after they notify the contractor, quite obviously. All right, so then the contract administration and management phase is where the performance is monitored to ensuring compliance with the contract terms and addressing any issues or modifications needed during the contract period. And then, of course, the most important step, process invoices and payments according to the contract terms. And then the last phase is contract closeout, where It's verified that all deliverables have been received and performance requirements are met, conduct a final assessment and lessons learned for future procurements, and close out the contract and archive the documentation. So these are a typical procurement life cycle, but specific processes and requirements may vary. So moving on, something that's very important in government contracting is all of the bodies of regulations and policies and guidelines. And there are many different ones to adhere to. Thankfully, you don't have to read them all. And typically, when you're looking at contracting opportunities, they're going to reference applicable elements from these different regulations. So they're going to give you a link and say, you need to make sure on this and you need to make sure on that. So what is the Federal Acquisition Regulation? It is the primary set of rules and guidelines that govern the acquisition process for all federal executive agencies. It standardizes procurement procedures, ensures consistency, and aims to promote fairness, efficiency, and transparency in government contracting. It covers topics such as acquisition planning, contract formation, contract administration, and various procurement methods and types. It also addresses socioeconomic policies such as small business participation, labor laws, and environmental considerations. And for more on this, you can go to acquisition.gov. And like I said, it is very complicated, very complex. But if you have questions about the contracting process, about the regulations around contracting, then you can go out there and read that. Other regulations include the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement, which is the FAR for acquisitions specific to the Department of Defense and its components such as the Army, Navy, and Air Force. It addresses unique defense-related policies and requirements, including national security considerations, export controls, and special procurement programs. It also establishes contractor responsibilities such as cybersecurity and supply chain risk management. And then we have agency-specific FAR supplements. Some federal agencies have their own regulations. Examples of these are the GSA Acquisition Regulation, the GSAR, the Department of Energy Acquisition Regulation, and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration FAR Supplement. And then we have the Small Business Act and the Small Business Administration Regulations, which establishes various programs and policies to support small business participation in federal contracting. The SBA implements these programs through regulations and guidelines such as the 8A Business Development Program, the Hub Zone, and the Women-Owned Small Business Program. And there are set-asides that are out there for women-owned small businesses, for 8A, business development, as well as other socioeconomic categories. So in addition to the 23% set aside for small business, there are even smaller set-asides that are very specific to certain economic categories and gender and social categories. Also, there is a category for a veteran-owned small business, I believe service-disabled veteran-owned small business. And so if you are in any of those categories, it definitely behooves you to focus on opportunities in those areas because you have a leg up on other companies. So then there's other relevant laws and regulations that may impact government contracting depending on the nature of the procurement and the parties involved. And so there's a couple examples here: the Buy American Act, the Service Contract Act, the Davis-Bacon Act, and the Trade Agreements Act. So you must comply with these rules when pursuing and executing government contracts. And, I would say start by acting with common sense. And then when you get into any gray areas, make sure you read through the regulations to make sure you're doing it properly. And like I said, most of the time when you're looking at opportunities, they're going to be linking to any regulations that they want to make sure you're adhering to. So now we're going to look at Sam.gov. Sam.gov is the System for Award Management. It's the official U.S. government portal for federal procurement. The key functions of Sam.gov: it's a centralized platform for contractor registration. It is a repository for federal procurement opportunities and a database for contract award information. The benefits of Sam.gov: it streamlines the contracting process for businesses and agencies. It provides access to a wide range of contract opportunities and enhances transparency and competitiveness in government contracting. And that was it. So Sam.gov is what 3 years ago, what I went through, I signed up for a profile on Sam.gov, put my company on there. It took me probably about a week to get through everything, except for one thing that we used to have to do is the DUNS number, and you no longer have to apply for a DUNS number. So I need to change this slide, but now they use a system called the UEI, which is a unique entity identifier. And unlike the DUNS number, which took me, I believe it took me about 3 months or 2 months to get a DUNS number, the UEI is almost immediate. And you must update your SAM registration annually to maintain active status, but that's just basically running through a bunch of screens, making sure nothing has changed and submitting. And typically you'll update your revenue information, and that might be all. And you can learn more about Sam.gov at Sam.gov. So now I want to talk about the platform that my company created. It's called softops.com. The reason Softops was created is we realized that the Sam.gov tools for managing contract opportunities were really very poor. Their search tool is pretty good, but then when it comes to, let's say you find an opportunity and you want to start working that opportunity, where are you going to put the information that you want to start storing and that kind of thing? And the fact is, Sam.gov doesn't have any tools for that kind of work. So we created Softops, so you can like opportunities, and you have a dashboard for the opportunities you like, and you see them organized in different ways here. And let's get into the different areas of softops.com. So on softops.com, you'll come in when you first sign up, and you'll create a team if you have a team subscription, and then you'll create filters, and those filter terms are going to be applied every morning to all the opportunities in the database, which currently there are 130,000 approximately, and you're going to have opportunities called My Opportunities, and these are going to be opportunities that are current. So it's everything that within the next 30 days has a response deadline, and it meets your criteria. And these are not all, it is any. So it's going to search for this. These are any ICS codes. I also have some keywords in here. And so you'll set up your filters like that. You'll save them. And actually, when you save them, it will run the My Opportunities list right away. But then every morning when you come in, it is going to be updated with the latest opportunities. And then back to the dashboard. And then we have the My Opportunities that I was talking about. So the way that I handle looking at these opportunities is I come in here and look at the set-asides, because I think it's best to focus on the set-aside that's your category. In my situation, I don't have any socioeconomic categories, not a woman, not a veteran, all those kinds of things. So I look at the total small business set-aside or partial small business set-aside, because those opportunities are allocated for small business. And then I'll go in and look at those. So when you click an opportunity, then the screen looks like this, and it's pretty much just all the information that's brought in from Sam. The delete op is not available to you. That's actually an administrative function. It has the notes in that opportunity, and then also we have a link here where you can click that, go out to sam.gov, and if you like this opportunity, then you might download the files and attach them to the opportunity here. And at some point, we're going to be creating a function to automatically download all the files, but I'm just not sure that's completely necessary, because I don't think we need the files for all the opportunities to be brought into our system. And then if you like the opportunity and you want to just say, I'm not 100% sure we're going to make a proposal on this, but let's go ahead and save it as like this op. You can also say submitted bid or bid successful, and you can also say not interested. Why would you put not interested? Because then when you're looking at opportunities, you're going to see a little icon, so you know that you're not interested in that opportunity, and you don't have to waste more of your precious time looking at that opportunity. Opportunity titles, as you can see, engineering infrastructure, resilience program support. These opportunity titles are very long and complex, and quite often you'll find yourself looking at the same opportunities over and over again, even opportunities that you've already decided you didn't like for whatever reason. There could be really a multitude of reasons why you don't like an opportunity. It could be there's some requirement in there for example, they want someone who's already like has a top secret clearance, and you're like, well, I don't have a top secret clearance, so we're not a good fit for that opportunity. You could spend the time and money to go and get top secret clearance, but it may not be worth it for you to spend all that time and money on that. So there's a lot of reasons why you may or may not like an opportunity. All right, so moving on, we have contracting officers, and this is a very important concept in the government contracting game. Contracting officers are the people who work for the various government agencies. Many of them are military, and so these contracting officers are your lifeline to landing opportunities. So when you see an opportunity out there, and I'm going to go ahead and back up one slide. So you see we have Regina Alflin, I think that says, and her email right here. So this is a contracting officer, and if you find a lot of opportunities that you like that happen to be in the same office, so this particular opportunity is with the Air Force, and let's see, there's a so total small business set aside, Department of the Air Force. I actually don't see that's the office that it's with. So anyway, moving on to contracting officers. If you click on the Department of Defense, then you'll see only the contracting officers with the Department of Defense. If you click on the Army or another sub-tier, then you're going to get only those opportunities, as well as office. So those are all filtered down to only see those opportunities. And then you also see the number of opportunities that are open. So these are only the active ones. It could be that they've had dozens of opportunities in the past, but they only have one active one. So, and then there's the contact full name. When you click on the contact full name, you come into the contracting officer, in this case, Amanda Lonsdale. And so there's a few things to note here. We see the opportunities for Amanda Lonsdale, including it's sorted by response deadline, so we can see the ones that we're interested in looking at before the deadline comes up. And there's her email address, which also I should have noted, you can click from here. You can click the email address and it will open an email. You can also send it to your CRM. So if you click send to my CRM, it will send it to the CRM program, and then from there you can manage it as you like to manage. And so what would you do with a contracting officer? Typically you don't just send contracting officer emails about specific opportunities unless, because typically there's going to be a process for answering questions, Q&A, that kind of thing. And so you're going to follow whatever the process they have. But what could you email this person with? You could email them your capabilities statement. So you have a statement of your own capabilities for your company. And then that is going to tell that contracting officer that if you have opportunities in the future that are in these areas, I am very interested in working with you on these. And because a lot of, they may have had bad experiences with companies in the past, and they're always looking to refresh their list of companies that they work with. So the other cool thing about working with contracting officers is they may have opportunities that are under $25,000. If the opportunity is under $25,000, they can award that opportunity without posting it anywhere. So they can just give that opportunity to you. So I encourage you to find contracting officers that are in the areas of government that you think you have the best opportunity, best chance to land contracts, and then send those people emails and start to develop relationships with them. And then the features coming soon, we're going to add some competitive research, contacting other contractors, and joining up for contract teaming. So it's important to note that when applying for opportunities, quite often companies will join together. So for example, you might have a really large company that applies for a very large contract. Let's say it's $100 million. And so a $100 million contract may be too big for a company like yours. However, as you know, they're required to give, out of that $100 million, they're required to give $23 million to small business. So you come in and you say, well, I can land a piece of this business. I could do this particular portion of the contract over here. And so they could allocate a portion of that 23 million to your company. So working with other companies, partnering up is a very good way to start making revenue in government contracting. So that is it for today's presentation. I appreciate you watching, and I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can go out to softeops.com. If you want to go to another webinar, then just go to softeops.com/webinar. Sorry, it's webinar. Yes, that's just webinar. And you can sign up for a webinar, and then softeops.com, you can review our subscriptions and take a look at those. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at tnorton@softeops.com. That's TNORTON @softeops.com. Thanks again, and have a great day.